of our junior year. We are, of course, still in the baseball lockout. We're in a different position than when we left the studio just over a month ago. I'm Dominic Stern, joined by Cole Bradley and Ryan Blank. Guys, how are we doing today on this fine Wednesday? New show time. Thank you all for tuning in live on youtube.com/Ryan Blank or whatever, and on blazeradioonline.com from the Bill Austin Radio Studio. Guys, how are we doing?
Doing pretty good, man. It's been good to be back. Good to see you guys again, of course. The only unfortunate thing about this is that we're talking about baseball, which is currently not happening right now. That's really the only unfortunate thing going on, I suppose, in my life, and I would assume is the same case with you guys.
Yeah, I've been good. I've enjoyed the little break that we got for the semester. I'm glad to be back. Glad to be back on Blaze for what is this? Semester number 4?
This is semester. I mean, it's kind of weird because we obviously had the show as a podcast freshman year in the fall. And then we had it for like 2 months in here before the COVID-19 pandemic began. And then it was a podcast again for all of sophomore year. And then we were in semester. So it's technically like season 6, but like it's gone from podcast to radio to podcast. And now we're back on the radio. So, I mean, I guess season 6, but we haven't really deemed it. We haven't really deemed it official, but
That's true.
this is the return of season 6 on Golden Sombrero.
Yeah, I like that. It's got a nice ring to it.
I like it too.
But we're back. It's we're still in the baseball lockout. I mean, it's frustrating. We entered the lockout on December 2nd when the deal expired at midnight on December 1st. Of course, Rob Manfred, the Major League Baseball commissioner, enforced the lockout, locking out the players. I mean, it's frustrating, but, the owners, they want to try and make sure they can make as much money as possible. And the players also got to fight for their rights and in making their money while also making sure that there's no salary cap to not limit any players making. So, obviously, a tough spot we're in. And there hasn't been much progress. In fact, there's only been one meeting between the two sides. Not a lot of progress was made. This meeting, of course, was last Thursday, so 6 days ago, when the owners presented an offer, or I don't even know what to call it, but they started talking, and it was initiated by the owners. No progress was made, but they were talking. I think that's the perspective we have to take on it.
I think just being optimistic, I would suppose, is just the best thing right now. I mean, that's all we can be. It's pretty obvious that spring training either being delayed, shortened, or just getting completely glossed over is a very real possibility, which is not great to hear. That's always like such an exciting time for us baseball fans, obviously, and just really anyone, especially here in Arizona. It draws in such a lot of business and attention. The point is that it's not. Yes, they're having talks, and I completely agree with you, Dom. But the fact that it's been. I read Rosenthal's column today. I'm not sure if you guys did as well, but it's been 43 days. It was 43 days from the time the lockout was instigated till the owners came forth with a proposal, and that's just way too much time and way too much, I guess, way too long of a hiatus without having like actual, discourse or actually having some, numbers and a proposal to sort of squabble over. And here we are in the middle, towards the end of January. We have what would normally be probably a month until pitchers and catchers will report, I would assume. And we've literally gotten nowhere as expected. I think the hope at this point would have been we at least have some fine details ironed out, and we're still kind of negotiating, and that there's some optimism, but there's none of that right now. So, yeah, all you can kind of do at this point is remain optimistic. But I mean, it is very frustrating to see this. Manfred, along with Tony Clark, like regardless of whose side you're on, I would go out on a limb and assume that all of us are, for the most part, pro player. We kind of side more with the players. They're the thing that makes this whole thing go. But like, regardless of whose side you're on, regardless of who you think is in the right or wrong here, both Manfred and the union, or both Manfred and the owners, and Tony Clark and the Players Association, they're all under fire, and they're all equally as responsible right now. When you're making a proposal, when you're making an argument, when you're coming forth with an offer, you want to see some give, and that's just not really happening right now. So I guess sort of to sum up my point, it sucks. Um, from a fan perspective, you want things to be as good of a place as they can possibly be in a situation like this, as soon as it can be that way, and that's just not the case right now. So we'll see what happens, but this recent proposal obviously shows signs that we're not really going to get anywhere.
Yeah, at this point, it's just kind of we're sitting and waiting, and we did way too much sitting and waiting, like you said, Cole, until the first dialogue, and it just doesn't seem as that productive, that positive. I know that the players have a lot of hefty demands. They want less service years before free agency. They want, which means also less arbitration. They want more money for younger players, and they don't really have much to offer back besides an expanded playoffs. And the owners aren't willing to budge on that. It's at the point of the players want more money, but yet they don't have anything to offer back besides that expanded playoffs, which the system that was proposed is a horrible system with where teams can pick their opponents. That's just stupid. Let's get that out of the way. But at this point, if there's any chance of having spring training on time, it would have to be just straight minor leaguers because minor leaguers could still sign a deal with the lockout going on. So they could try to do a spring training with just minor leaguers. So you could try that, but overall, I don't think there's a way you're going to see not minor leagues, spring training on time. Because what other people have to realize is that there's still free agency that has to happen. A lot of top free agents have not signed a deal yet. So you need to allow 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks for that to happen. And we're under a month until pitchers are supposed to report. So it's not looking too good right now. But hopefully the sides can work and get some details ironed out within the next couple weeks to where there's a glimmer of hope at least.
No, it's just like unfortunate because they knew that like everything's on the line in Major League Baseball, and that's kind of what Ken Rosenthal's column was talking about on The Athletic. I mean, if you're a fan and you don't have an Athletic subscription at this point, I don't know what to tell you because there's like so many deals that they offer. It gives you like so much insight and just like really cool storytelling.
Plus, they just got acquired by the New York Times, so that should tell you all you need to know.
Right, they're gonna stay. That's for sure. Your money's not going to waste. So, just reading that column, Ken Rosenthal, who of course is no longer employed by Major League Baseball because of his writing at The Athletic, because it's truth. He's basically like bashing Major League Baseball, saying like, what are they doing here? Like, they're gonna end up ruining like the reputation of their sport and lose some viewers, like what happened in 1994 and 95 when that lockout happened in the middle of the season. And if it weren't for players taking steroids in summers of 1998, 99, and 2000, like kind of revitalizing the sport and like garnering interest from Americans, who knows where the sport would be at today. And of course, Major League Baseball has like totally like thrown those guys under the rug and said like, wow, these guys are so bad for our sport, which is classic Major League Baseball. So, it's frustrating, but there's one thing that we think has come as a positive, and I know Cole and I, we used to not be for this, but after like watching baseball with the DH in 2020, we both kind of realized like, okay, like, as much as I do appreciate the strategy, watching baseball at the DH is a lot better.
Welcome to the correct side of the argument,
Right.
gentlemen.
Yeah, no. Once we fully watched our teams play with the Ducks, we're like, oh man, like thank God Mike Leake or you Darsh are
Insert name here.
are no longer getting no longer like ending rallies, and ending
Right.
like ruining potential
Yeah.
rallies.
And staying healthy, more
Yes.
importantly.
Too.
I mean, how many injuries one example that comes to mind at the beginning of this past year was Zach Gallen in spring training, literally like tweaked his elbow and was sidelined for like a month.
But we also have to remember the whole Scherzer thing when he was bunting in BP and got a black eye.
Like there's countless instances it's happened before, and like again, Gallen like swinging in the cages and tweaking his elbow, and then like not being able to pitch for a month, like But again, there's so many countless instances. So I think just the health of pitchers, so they can stay, they can focus on what they're getting paid to do, and that's pitch and get out, is also very, very important there.
Yeah, that's also another key point. So, I mean, just Major League Baseball as a whole, they've just messed everything up. But that's it's what they're gonna do. And baseball has always gone in its self way, and we're of course seeing that. So, guys, I'm gonna ask you the question. I mean, we all agree spring training is not going to start on time, or it's not going to be in the capacity of what we would hope spring training would be at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys think the regular season gets altered at all? Just like from a game standpoint, not like skill because these guys like have less spring training time, but from like 162 games, similar schedule. Do you guys think that gets messed up at all? Is baseball going to start on time?
Too early to tell.
Yeah.
It's too early to tell. You can't know for sure. But if it drowns out much longer, I think you're probably going to see the season at least get delayed. They might have to cut a few games. It just depends on what the players decide, I think, is going to be a part of it, is what this season's going to look like if it is delayed. At this point, all signs are heading towards there's going to at least be the delay in the season. But I don't know if we can for sure say yes or no if at this time there is going to be a shortened season by at least a little bit to accommodate the delay. But if all signs are pointing towards that delay, which they are, you could end up seeing some games being cut from the schedule.
Yeah, I think that the sides both have like the encouragement, but, like they'll need like to have a full season. Like the owners,
There's a sense of urgency.
Right. The owners will make significantly less money if the schedule gets trimmed because ticket sales will obviously like go down because they're not going to have as many fans in the stands.
Right.
And also like TV deals are going to say, all right, well, instead of us having 150 televised games this year, we now only have 140. So we want some money back. And the owners, at the end of the day, they're not going to want that. And players, they'll likely have those prorated contracts, similar to what we saw in the 2020 season, if, of course, this does happen. And if that's the case, they're obviously going to want to play 162 games. So I do think the season is going to start on time. I just think it's going to come at the cost of some spring training, which is obviously unfortunate because I think that means we might see some more injuries at the beginning of the season because the players are less like worked up. And I think we could also see some poor quality of play at the beginning because hitters haven't been like seeing as much like major league live pitching as they normally would have, and pitchers are also like not as synced up. You're going to see more blown leads because of bullpens, like and starting pitchers going shorter in the game. So I think that's a really unfortunate part of it. And then just some other parts. I mean, you guys already mentioned it. The players, Ryan, I think you were the one that mentioned it, so I'll go to you first here. You were talking about how the players or the players union, they want to limit it to your rookie like contract, or you can reach free agency after 5 service time. What do you think of that?
Here's the thing. I don't think this all really happens as much if the whole thing with the Cubs and Chris Bryant doesn't happen with how they manipulate service time.
And that's another thing we can talk about.
And I think the whole argument with getting less years before hitting free agency really ramped up after that whole thing because of how owners and general managers will manipulate service time to get that extra year. Again, 5 years, I see sides for both. Where hey, get him to free agency sooner. It cuts arbitration years, and it just fills a desire for them. I see why the players would want it, the chance to make more money quicker. But also, what about the teams? You have teams like small market that can't afford rising stars and would lose an extra year or two.
Their owners choose not to afford them. That's what it is. I mean, that's literally what it is. It's the owners being
truth
lame
to that, but there's also some falsity.
It's the owners being lame. These guys are all like millionaires, if not billionaires, because they own these teams. They are literally choosing to pay players.
So
that's
basically,
I see the side mainly for the players, and I don't think there's a wrong side for them. I think that their whole argument to make more money in contracts, I believe that the way that owners can get rid of that argument is by lowering service years. So basically, you're killing two birds with one stone. It's how that argument could go. But I definitely see the point for the players to ask for less service time before they hit free agency.
Again, I generally, like the rest of us, feel like I really side more with the players, regardless of the circumstance. I'm always going to lean that way just because they're the ones making this thing happen. And I feel very strongly about how service time is manipulated and how it's been sort of wrongly used and manipulated for the past, ever since it really became a thing. When you have talent in your farm system, when you have guys who are at a major league level, playing at a major league level, and your only excuse to the reason why they're not playing with your big league club is because you still want to give them experience. You want to ease them in. I think, quite frankly, it's just not. I mean, it depends on who we're talking about here, but especially with top prospects, it's not very valid. There's countless scenarios. We had this conversation when with the Mariners, who have for a long time been, kind of a main culprit in the service time manipulation thing. And they have a loaded farm system with guys who in the next 3 years, I'd even go out on a limb and say as little as 2 years, are going to be up with their big league club and making an impact right away. And they're exciting players. It's Julio Rodriguez. It's Novielli Marte. It's Spencer Torkelson. It's Bobby Witt Jr. It's guys who are now probably like just a couple good games away from breaking onto the major league scene. But, we had the same conversation a few years ago. That's just not the case. So I think not only just, how service time is manipulated, but how, arbitration and things being shortened, sort of factors into that with guys, being eligible to get paid big time money and hit the market, even before their prime is very valuable, because not only is it good for viewership and for getting eyes on the game, it's intriguing, it's fun to watch. That's part of what makes the offseason great, is because you're going to see your favorite players potentially go and play somewhere else and mix things up, and it changes the whole dynamic of the league. But, for them being able to do that after contributing a sizable amount and not being, being such a factor is huge. And I think they're deserving of that as well. Now, where it gets a little tricky is the guys who are kind of marginal. The 95% of Major League Baseball, where it's guys who are, for most of their career up and down between the minors and the majors, and who are into their 30s and are platoon guys who aren't getting that much playing time to begin with, but are still contributing. There's countless examples where that's a thing, where guys are still arbitration eligible into their 30s, and by the time they're almost retired, they hit the open market. And that's it benefits those guys as well by cutting it in half and making where you got to play 3 years of big league service time. I think is appropriate for your stars who are going to get the chance to potentially play with one or two different teams in their career at least. or at least, be eligible to get paid sizable amounts of money um, at an earlier point, and for your guys who probably deserve it the most, who have been up and down for their entire career. It just works out for everyone, and it makes the most sense, and it sort of gets rid of that whole um, it sort of at least finds a way to combat those service time manipulation um, things that a lot of owners and a lot of front offices like to do with their players. So I'm in favor of it. I think they need to cut it in half. I think there's a lot more to it than people think, and I think it just makes the most sense, and it's the most popular narrative right now. So it just kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it's such a complex situation because the also like common theory is that it's millionaires fighting billionaires.
Mhm.
And that's not necessarily true. Like, yeah, the guys who are representing Major League Baseball are millionaires because they have been there, they accrued the service time so they can represent their teams and be a part of the players union. But those guys' jobs are to really fight for the guys who are coming up from the minor leagues because the players union does not represent minor leaguers. They only represent Major League Baseball, not minor league baseball. So it's their job to push up the starting salary for rookies and also less arbitration. Well, is it 3 years of that rookie deal and then 2 years of arbitration, or is it 2 years of that rookie deal and
I've
then
seen a bunch of different stuff. The main one that I am most intrigued with and that I think makes the most sense is just straight up 3 years of arbitration.
Right. And I also saw that Major League Baseball suggested that they do it based off of Fangraphs WAR, which is wild because like if you're a player that has like negative WAR, all of a sudden like you're not getting paid that much.
Right.
Which like is very cool because it's all dependent on how you play. And if you're like Cody Bellinger, Aaron Judge, or Pete Alonso,
it definitely heightens the competitive balance.
Right. But if you're the guys like what we've said for Major League Baseball, these players, they're struggling to get up and stay up there consistently because they don't get that playing time. All of a sudden they don't play as well as they possibly could. They have a negative WAR, obviously, like they're going to be affected. So it's crazy. I think that if these players want to say, all right, let's up the rookie deal, we'll get our free agency after 5 years of service time, but we'll do 3 years of the rookie deal instead, and then 2 years of arbitration.
Mhm.
So that way our pay doesn't go up as much, but we're still like getting there earlier to free agency potentially. Right. I think that's where these sides could meet in the middle a little bit.
Yeah.
And the service time manipulation needs to go. We talked about it. Chris Bryant, George Springer, these are guys that got killed like in free agency. Like, yeah, Springer made $150 million. Yeah, Chris Bryant's probably going to make $150 million, but these are guys that could have made $250 to $300 million
had they been called up sooner.
Had they been called up sooner, or just, yeah, that's what it is because they would have been able to hit free agency a year earlier. So it's crazy. This whole situation is so it's so like fluid. There's a lot of details to it, and we'll be here to update you all as the situation unfolds. John Heyman did tweet out this morning that the Players Union is expected to make a proposal to the owners and Major League Baseball Thursday morning. So that is cool. The sides, it sucks that like it obviously took a week for the players to like get back, but it's just the sides need to speed up, and it's sides.
Yeah.
As much as we like all like don't like Rob Manfred, Tony Clark is almost equally as much to blame here.
Mhm.
Like Tony could have been there saying like, hey, like we need to get this going. Like let's come up with the proposal, because the sides know what each side wants.
Right.
Like they know, and they know where they can meet in the middle. Now I'm not sure of it because these sides like they probably discussed it inside, but like they all know where like they're ultimately going to meet up. It's just they don't want to get there yet because they want to see if the other side can give in a little bit more earlier, so that way their side can win.
The bottom line is compromise. That's the bottom line. And like you said, these two heads of their respected sides Tony Clark with the Players Association, Rob Manfred with the league, they're equally responsible. They both need to hold each other accountable, regardless of how much they disagree with each other. They both have the same goal in mind. Everyone has the same goal in mind. They want to bring baseball back. They want to do it as soon as possible. And in order to do that, there needs to be compromise.
Yes. So with that, Ryan, what happened to you on StreamYard? All right, that
That's all right.
sucks. If you would like to come over here and grab my computer charger, if that would help, you can do that. But it is. You're right. Anyways, all right. Well, you're hearing that on YouTube. Oh, well, I guess they can hear that. Ryan can't hear us on StreamYard, which means you on YouTube cannot hear him. However, you should be able to listen to Ryan on BlazeRadioOnline.com. This is the Golden Sombrero Show. Dominic Stern, Cole Bradley, and Ryan Blank talking about the latest in baseball. That was our little update on the lockout situation. When we come back next week, we'll hopefully have some more updates. Like I said, there is going to be a proposal from the players coming out on Thursday. But for now, we're going to start our player positional rankings. We did them last year. It was a lot of fun. And obviously, with 162 plus games of baseball played last year, our rankings have now changed. So we're going to start with first base, and we're also going to do our third base rankings tonight. And then we'll go with 2 or 3 other positions on our next show. And that's going to help us kill some time while we don't exactly have a lot of news to talk about. I mean, there's obviously like players have changed agents, but that really doesn't mean that much in the grand scheme of thing. But Ryan, we're going to start with you. We're talking about first baseman here. Who is your number 5 first baseman in Major League Baseball? Yeah, so Ryan with his first baseman, and this is for the people on YouTube. Number 5, he went Max Muncy. Cole, who's your number 5?
Let's give me 1 sec here.
Yes. So I suppose before hey, Ryan's back.
I am back.
I suppose before I get into this little caveat, I have 3 honorable mentions here.
Okay.
I really squabbled over this, especially 5th spot.
Okay.
No.
Oh, we're talking about 25th?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have 3 honorable mentions.
Okay.
Max Muncy, Pete Alonso, and Yuli Gurriel. Okay. So my number 5 is Jose Abreu. And I think I would have put him higher. And the more I sit here and remember how much of a Jose Abreu supporter and fan that I've been for most of my life, the more I want to really raise it, but I have to be firm here. Obviously, he was an MVP in 2020, the shortened year. This guy is, when we talk about rankings in general, I think Dom and I had this discussion beforehand, before the show. There's a model of consistency that certain guys have, and it's the reason why they're always some of the best players out there for so long, is there's a model of consistency. It's having sustained success for so long. And Jose Abreu might be like the poster child of that. He has always been a 30-plus homer, 100-plus RBI, if you like your counting stats. He's always hitting in the high 260s, 270s, sometimes in the 300s. He's an on-base guy. Sure, he strikes out a lot, but he's also going to walk a fair amount as well. And he's going to have an OPS above probably, OPS plus of above, 120, 130, probably almost every single year. I only put him at number 5 right now because there are 4 other guys who I felt this year were just better than him, but there is no shame in being number 5 on my list. I firmly believe that. And he followed up his MVP campaign with another really solid season. So I'm going with Jose Abreu at number 5.
Yeah, there were a couple of tough omissions on this list because, I mean, I think there's about 8 guys that are like really good that I could have put in our top 5 spot. Yuli Gurriel didn't quite make it there for me. I would have put Max Muncy here at 5, but he's probably not going to play this upcoming year because he tore his UCL, which is really tough because he's not a pitcher. But I mean, he's not a pitcher, so he might not miss all of next year. Well, I mean, it's just like tough for me to rank a guy like in the top 5 if you're not going to play this next year. Yeah. So I mean, like I said, I would have put him at 5, but instead I'm going to put the 2019 Rookie of the Year up here, Pete Alonso at number 5. He just barely edged out Jose Abreu here. I just think there's a little bit more plate discipline here. It's tough because with Alonso and Abreu, like none of these guys are elite defenders over at first base. They don't really play well down the line, so that it makes it really hard to decipher. So Cole, you putting Abreu over Alonso makes sense. I put Alonso here, but I would have put Muncy there at 5. Ryan, going back to you, who's your number 4 first baseman?
When the Royals face him, Jose Abreu is consistent each year. Like you said, Cole, 30-plus homers, 100-plus RBIs. He's going to consistently hit 260s, 270s, maybe get into the 280s a little bit. But he is so consistent in what he does every year. Consistency is key at staying at the top, and that's what he's done. And I think that overall, I think he's a little bit more upside than Max Muncy at this current time.
I agree. Completely agree. Yeah.
Cole, who you got at 4?
So
I have Matt Olson at 4. You kind of brought up a little bit of, defensively, first base is one of those positions we've talked about in the past that is not really known for that. You stick your best bat there. And Matt Olson is both for the Oakland A's. I mean, he's a close second, I'd say, with the glove in terms of, Matt Chapman playing across from him. But still, regardless, at his given position, he's always going to be regarded as one of the best on both sides. And he kind of continued that. And he followed up a season this year or in 2020 where, he hit sub 200. Kind of was a down year for him. The power was still there, certainly, but it was strikeouts galore. And it was a lot of the same thing that has kind of plagued him in the past. This year was 100% his best year in probably every single statistical category. First of all, the 911 OPS and the 153 OPS plus speaks for itself. The guy who's been notorious for having a strikeout problem actually walked almost more than actually it's kind of a large margin, but he walked 88 times this year. He struck out 113. His previous kind of range before that was less than 50 walks or around like 50 to 70 and 130 plus strikeouts. That's a significant improvement in my opinion. Again, not to mention he's got the glove over there. Probably one of the best defenders at that position. And the power, 39 homers this year, 35 doubles. This guy's a machine. And from the left side, being as young as he still is, he's going to be that way for a long time. So I have Matt Olson at my 4.
Right. I had Olson at 5 last year, and you would have figured that with the season he had, he would have jumped up higher than what I put him at, which is the number 4 spot like Cole did. But it just shows you the consistency of the guys that I kept up in front of him, and the insane season from the guy that I had pass him. So yeah, Matt Olson's at 4 because he is an elite power hitter. He showed more plate discipline this past year, and he is an elite, probably the best defensive first baseman in all of baseball. There's obviously a couple of other good guys out there. Ryan, who's your number 3 first baseman?
This is so tough for me between Olson and Goldschmidt, but I'm going to put Olson at 3. I think that Matt Olson proved that he has just the power even more to pair with that glove that he has over at first base. And he had a terrific year. He was one of the MVP candidates because of his power that he displayed and his ability to also defend well. So I believe that has a huge impact. It's your ability as a former first baseman myself. For me, you have to be able to field the position well, and he does very well. So I'm going to put Matt Olson at 3.
Ryan, did you defend the field, or did you play the field well at first base?
The best thing I did was field.
All right. Okay.
There you go.
All right.
I'd have to say the same with me. I was never the brightest at the plate, to say the least.
Yeah.
I was fine at the plate, but I will say this, I was a really good defender.
Nice. All right. Did not know that. Cole, who's your number 3 first baseman?
Don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah, I was. I won't lie.
Yeah, I knew you were. I knew you were.
So, and when we talk about consistency, this is kind of the this is where things kind of go awry for me. This is where I sort of this is the exception, and I wouldn't do this, but this guy literally had probably the greatest season, I've seen a first baseman have probably in my life, and that's Vladimir Guerrero Jr. As my 3, 48 home runs, top of the league in that regard. A 401 on base, that was top of the league. A 1,000 plus OPS. This guy was insane this year, and he was second in MVP voting because Shohei Ohtani does know how to play 2 different positions. That is really the only reason why. And again, I wouldn't normally throw a guy immediately in the top 3 after having, just one really good outlier season, but it was so good that it was deserving of that. And if we're going off of right now, of course you got to put him in top 3, at least in my mind. He took the jump. There was a lot of doubt. There was a lot of hate, especially coming into this past year. He slimmed up. He got stronger, and he didn't strike out as much. He had better discipline, a lot like Matt Olson in terms of that regard. He walked more, and he just hit the ball extremely hard. Every single time, seemingly, he was up there. He was putting up, StatCast best kind of numbers, it felt like. Will he continue this kind of, I guess, godlike rise? Probably not. But if he even hits half of what he did this year, he's top 5 in my mind for the foreseeable future. So I have him at 3.
Yeah, thankfully, Vladdy slimmed up a little bit. That definitely helped him out. I'm not quite to Vladdy yet. My number 3 is Paul Goldschmidt. The consistency, I mean, it's there. Had a little bit of a down year in 2019, but that was just a little bit. Like, his down year was still an above-average year for first baseman. And, we all held on to faith to him on the 2020 pandemic season. He had a bounce-back year, and he proved that is the type of player he is in the full 2021 season, helping the Cardinals get to the playoffs. He was arguably their most consistent bat. O'Neill was obviously really consistent out there in left field. Arenado had his kind of like ups and downs, but Goldschmidt was there, and he also plays really good defense over at first base. Love me some Goldie. Thank God. I know that you do not feel this way, but thank God he is no longer a Diamondback, because Goldschmidt, he killed the Padres, and he killed a lot of other teams. But Goldschmidt's an incredible first baseman. I have him at number 3. Ryan, I'm interested to hear who you have at number 2, because you're yet to name Paul Goldschmidt, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and Freddie Freeman.
Can I be honest with you guys? I kind of still have in my head Vladdy at DH, and I don't know why.
Okay.
Going into this,
Okay.
so that's why Vladdy is not going to be in my top 5.
Okay. We'll just.
So
it was an omission. It's okay.
Yeah. So really, what I would do is slide Vladdy in at 2, and then push the other guys up. So Muncy would be knocked out.
Okay.
In this case.
Okay. So then, just updating it for the listeners who have
So-
kind of lost track.
So with Vladdy now in there, I have Abreu at 5, Olsen at 4. Number 3 is who would be my number 2?
Paul Goldschmidt.
Paul Goldschmidt.
Yeah.
Consistency. He
Okay.
can hit the ball well. He plays the position well in the field. So he'd be my 3.
Good.
And then my number 2 is Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
All right.
There we go.
You're a little worried.
Yeah, no, because Cole and
We're
I.
kind
Yeah,
of giving ourselves the side eye over here.
The thing is, I was thinking I am missing someone, and then it clicked right away. I was like, I'm missing Vladdy.
Well, and it's going to be interesting to see what Toronto does, because I believe after this upcoming year, Teoscar Hernandez is a free agent, and he was their DH this past year. So Guerrero is not a great fielder. That's fine. When you hit absolute missiles, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter for him.
Hitting the ball is
Right.
hitting is far more important than defense, unless you're a catcher. So we'll see if he ends up moving to DH, but for now, first base. Thank you for clarifying.
Yes, I cut my losses. I made the correction. So yes.
But so you had Vladdy at 2. Cole, you had Vladdy at 3. So is Paul Goldschmidt your number 2?
Yes, and for all the reasons and more that you guys kind of covered in terms of why he is so good. I mean, we go back to that model of consistency, and for so long, for his entire career, in fact, he's been right up there with Jose Abreu, MVP caliber every year. He's going to give you probably 30-plus home runs a year. He's going to drive in runs, and he's going to hit in the high 200s to low 300s. He's going to get on base. He's striking out a lot more than I think he used to, but that's part of baseball now, obviously. The OPS is still there, 879 this past year, 143 OPS plus. Put that sort of into perspective. Yeah, I mean, again, MVP caliber every single year, model of consistency, plays really good defense at a spot that doesn't demand it. So in my opinion, he goes above and beyond in that regard. He's number 2.
Yeah, I love Goldschmidt, but I with the year that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. had, I just think that he's going to be better going forward. So I put Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in front of him. It was a tough decision, but I mean, I've seen a lot of people put him at 1, and I don't agree with that at all. And I'm glad that
I just think it's too soon.
Right, exactly. Guerrero had a better year than Freddie Freeman. No one's going to argue that.
No.
Other than the fact that Freddie Freeman won a World Series, was the team captain of the team that won the World Series.
Yes.
So, well, I mean, we've already kind of given away, but Freddie Freeman's going to be number 1. But I mean, with the season that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. had, I felt like I had to put him just very slightly in front of Paul Goldschmidt. And like I said, I love me some Paul Goldschmidt, but it's just that's how impressive Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s 2021 season was, and he's so fun to watch. Getting to see him at the All-Star game hit that absolute bomb off 2021 NL Cy Young Award winner Corbin Burns. Really cool. It was so getting him to get. I very rarely like watch games from the upper tank just because that's Padre games aren't that sold out. Same with Diamondbacks games. All-Star games sold out. But so like my perception of the game is a little different because I'm up there, and you just knew automatically that ball was gone. Like there was at least 5 other times that game where I'm like, oh, it's out, and then it's not into the warning track, and I'm like, oh, now I feel like an idiot.
At Coors, it's pretty deceptive when a ball's hit in the air. Sometimes you don't know, but there's very rare. There's those rare cases where it's like, he got that one.
Yeah, so
and I feel like it's the same way for a lot of ballparks, especially at Kauffman. If you're sitting all the way up right by home plate. There's something that feeling. You see it, you're like, wait a second, and then
I was thinking
your eyes adjust, and you're like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
So, but no, I feel like that's the same way at a lot of stadiums, though, when you're sitting up top.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we were pretty much on board with our first baseman rankings. You know, we all had Freeman 1. I don't think we need to go too deep into Freeman. He's a beast. He's been a beast for 10+ years now.
Let me just explain it with a few things. Okay. He's an MVP, 5-time All-Star, Gold Glover, World Series champion, and 3-time Silver Slugger. He's the best first baseman in baseball. He does it all, and he does it all as the lead guy for a team, especially when that team lost their franchise cornerstone in Ronald Acuna Jr. So, yes, he's the best first baseman.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens again in 2022.
Very true.
Because if these 2 seasons, kind of replicate, we're going to have to say, all right, is Vlad better than Freeman? Especially if Freeman has another really good year like he has always had. It's going to really push us, but I don't know. We'll see. That's obviously something we can talk about next offseason when there's not a lockout.
Right.
So let's move over to third base. This was a much harder position to rank. There's way more guys that I think could go in the top 5. Cole, I'm going to start with you. Who did you put at number 5 for third baseman?
So I agree. Again, I'm going to mentions. I think that the gap was a little bit more significant with these 3 and the top between these 3 and the top 5, unlike it was with first base. But Alex Bregman, Justin Turner, and Anthony Rendon are not on my list. I don't know. Do with that what you will. My number 5 is Manny Machado, and I mean, obviously MVP runner-up in the National League in 2020, had kind of that breakout year that I think the Padres have wanted him to have in year 2, obviously. Was still very good in year 1 with San Diego. And obviously for his entire career, he's been one of the best, if not the best defender at that position. And he's going to
never been the best because there's a man named Nolan Arenado.
Right. But he's been up there.
Yes.
It's been kind of a race, and it's been more of a race, especially as of late. And then this year he followed it up. Obviously, once again, an all-star, received MVP votes. Gets on base, 131 OPS plus. I think kind of refined himself a little bit more as a hitter over these past couple of years, which is really good to see, especially if you're a Padres fan. I speak for Dom, I suppose, in that regard. He's my number 5.
Ryan.
This was really tough for me to look for third base, but I'm going to go Rafael Devers. I think that Rafael Devers is still not he's still not at his best. He still is a beast offensively. He can hit the cover off the ball and drives and runs at high levels. The glove got better this year. It did.
Very slightly. But it did.
He still needs to do a lot of improvement at the hot corner, and that's why I have him at 5. I think he needs to improve there more and maybe be a little bit more consistent at the plate. He has a lot of stretches where he's really hot, then really cold. I need him to get a little bit more consistent as well, but I have Devers at 5 right now.
Yeah, I left Devers off my list.
Wow.
Okay.
But I mean, the top 5, and like, I kept 2 guys on who had injury-riddled 2021 years because I'm thinking who's the best, not like who's going, not like I'm not projecting based on like injuries and whatnot.
So my question to you.
Yes.
Injury-riddled from this past season, but going to miss this upcoming season.
Right. Well, no, because I'm thinking like, what are they going to be? I'm ranking who's the best, and so like I said Max Muncy is better than.
I completely respect that. I just want a little bit of clarification.
Yeah, right. I said Max Muncy is. Let's see, who did I rank at 5 again? I said Max Muncy is better than Pete Alonso, but considering the Max Muncy is probably going to miss all this upcoming season, I put Alonso on this list. Okay. So I mean, obviously, when you look at it, Alex Bregman, he's my number 5.
I left him off.
Yeah, that's fine because he didn't play a ton.
Yeah.
His postseason was kind of rough because he was banged up.
Right.
But you got to look at it in the full picture. 2020 had a good year. 2019 he had like a 7.5 WAR season and would have won MVP almost any other year. But Mike Trout stayed healthy that year and put up another 9+ WAR season. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, that's true.
And just thinking about what Alex Bregman has meant to that Houston team, he was kind of the last guy that got up there and really like pushed them over the edge. He's an incredible player, also a really good fielder over at third base. Rafael Devers can obviously pass him this upcoming year because he is just as good of a hitter, I think, as Bregman is. Nowhere near as good as the fielder. We have seen some strides inconsistently from Devers in the field that I think would push him there. And another guy I want to give a shout out to, Yoan Moncada. Moncada had a heck of a year, and he had a heck of a 2020 or 2019.
I considered putting him in my top 5. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I thought about it, but I'm like, I don't know how much I trust him because that 2020 season was so bad.
Yeah.
And obviously global pandemic, whatnot. And also, you guys are. I know Cole's going to talk about him because we talked about it a little earlier. Mm-hmm. Austin Riley, really good season this past year. I left him off, obviously in favor of the consistency of some guys when they were healthy. So Bregman, I had at 5. Ryan, we're going to swing it back to you. Who do you have at number 4?
You guys might give me some looks for this. I'm putting Anthony Rendon.
Okay.
When that guy is healthy, he is elite both at the plate and in the field. He has not been healthy since signing that contract with the Angels, and he needs to get healthy. If he gets healthy, then I think he's going to be primed for a huge year with the Angels, and that's going to set up just a scary trio in the order of Trout, Ohtani, and Rendon.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like your knowledge there, Dom, but
right.
I'm applying it to Rendon here to put him at 4.
Yeah, no, I have Rendon on my list too. Okay. So, like, I love Rendon. It's funny, like, how dependent the Angels' upcoming season is going to be on health because Rendon coming back healthy, Syndergaard coming back healthy, Shohei Ohtani staying healthy, Trout right, of course. So the Angels, because I mean, I don't want to say infamously, but we all picked them to win the division last year, and they of course didn't come close. But I mean, we were all expecting Anthony Rendon, who we all view when healthy, without a doubt, a top 5 third baseman, wherever you want to put him in there.
He's arguably a top 5 overall player.
Yeah, his consistency when he was healthy as a National was unmatched. So,
which is why he got that huge deal with the Angels.
Right.
So,
Cole, who's your number 4 third baseman?
He's fell off a little bit for me because of these last 2 years. Just hasn't been, himself as much. And I'm not discrediting him in that regard in a huge way, but he has fallen. I still consider him very much top 5. But again, these past few years, I don't think I've done him any favors. But regardless, the track record speaks for itself. He's probably been a top 5 third baseman for, ever since at least 2015.
Mm-hmm.
So, just given that is enough to leave him on this list, because if there's anything that defines this guy, it's his glove. And his glove alone, I think, is enough to make him top 5 at this position, at a position that demands expertise defensively constantly. He is the poster child for good defense at that position. He's almost an old soul in that regard, because there's not a whole lot of value instilled in terms of defensively at this position anymore. You have your very few elite class third base defenders, and it's like a very short list, and it's a lot shorter than I think it used to be. And he, again, mixes the glove with being obviously such a consistent and good hitter. So I'm sure he'll continue to climb, if not stay in the top 5, but I have him at number 4.
Yeah, I love Nolan Arenado. Once again, glad he got traded out of the NL West. So shout out to the Rockies, who almost had a better record than the Padres this past year, which was sad. Yeah, I know. So my number 4, I have Padres third baseman Manny Machado up here. He's just been one of the most consistent players at third base. He's never had the truly elite season other than his 2020 shortened season, but he's never had a bad season, and he has a plus bat and a plus glove. His glove was elite until he got hurt in the middle of last year. I thought he could have actually won the Gold Glove over Nolan Arenado. Started making some errors, and there was no shot, because your margin of error when being a National League third baseman for winning the Gold Glove is extremely thin.
It's
so
ridiculously thin.
Right. So Machado has the talent to have a better season than Arenado does. His consistency is far better than Manny, but his glove is so good. I have Machado at 4. He's not overpaid. He's not underpaid. He's properly paid because he's one of the best third basemen in all of baseball. Ryan, who's your number 3 third baseman?
Manny Machado, for the exact reasons that you just described. He hasn't had that elite level season where you can really put him up there with Nolan Arenado defensively. But like you said, Dom, he's consistently good. He's a guy that you could depend on to be a cornerstone of your lineup and be consistent and someone that you can rely on at times. So that's why I have Machado at 3.
Cool.
This is my outlier. This is the one where I kind of stray away from the whole consistency model that we've kind of talked about, and I go Austin Riley at number 3. And it's not so much that I put the season that he had in the same regard or same ballpark, no pun intended, that Vlad had, but to go from a guy who was, almost, barely marginal at the plate to, MVP caliber in one season. And not only that, but to stay in the lineup, the guy played 160 games this year. That's exactly what you want at that position, especially when you kind of have a budding star on your hands. It's like, okay, this is the guy because he's in the lineup every single day. He kind of showed that this year, at least to me. Really, really good hitter. Very good in the postseason as well, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he's my number 3.
Yeah, no, I had no problem with you putting Austin Riley on your list. We talked about that before the show. He was a tough guy to leave off, but I think that there's that many good third basemen in this league that I was willing to leave off. An MVP candidate, not a finalist, but an MVP candidate out of the top 5. Now, my number 3 for third baseman, Ryan, you mentioned him earlier. It's Anthony Rendon. Health problems exist. He needs to actually play this upcoming year if he wants to be a top 5 third baseman, because there are that many good guys. Because if he does play, he's going to be up here because he's that good. Extremely disciplined hitter. Everyone remembers the Juan Soto single off Josh Hader in the NL wildcard game that gave them the lead. Do you guys remember what happened before that?
Yeah, I was just about to say that was set up by the incredible play. He walked.
Yeah, he walked.
And it was an insane plate appearance.
Yeah.
Walks are they're beautiful because walks are earned. I mean, so are hits, but walks are really earned, and
Yeah.
I walked in my alumni game this past winter.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
There you go. Nice
it's gonna be
job.
one of the best pitchers on the varsity team this upcoming year, and I got to walk off him. I earned that.
There you go.
Anyways, Ryan, who's your number 2?
I got Nolan at 2. Consistency. Yeah, his bats dropped off a little bit, but that fielding. Every year he has been in the league, he has won a Gold Glove, and that's just crazy. When you think of the best defenders in baseball, the first guy that comes to my brain is Nolan Arenado. So he is number 2 for that reason.
This is where I have Rafael Devers.
Wow.
So yeah,
Okay.
I sort of view his rise differently as opposed to you guys. We've kind of talked about it before. Yes, the glove is not there. Yes, I value defense quite a bit, especially at this position. But the last 3 years have been nuts for this guy at the plate. I would honestly understand the argument for him being the best hitting third baseman in the league just because of that. He has been so good at the plate. I mean, the power speaks for itself. And I mean, 890 OPS this past year, 132 OPS plus. He was playing hurt in the postseason and still hitting bombs, and probably being one of the top contributors next to Kike Hernandez in the Red Sox lineup in the postseason. So that's just insane. He's number 2.
Yeah, I love Devers. He's definitely one of the more fun guys up here. And who do you guys think has more WAR over the last 3 years at third base? Rafael Devers or Nolan Arenado?
Devers.
Yes, it's got to be Devers.
No, it's the same. It's 11.1. But that just shows you like how good Devers is, because we all think so highly of Arenado.
Yeah.
I have Arenado here at number 2. The defense, and he's also second among all third basemen the last 3 years in home runs, only behind Eugenio Suarez. But
Interesting.
that dude just hits bombs. It's actually not even close. Suarez has 95 home runs over the last 3 years, which is insane.
Wow.
Especially considering one of those seasons is 60 games.
That's nuts.
But Arenado, the glove, the power, like he had a good year this past year. I trust him. I mean, he's just a really good player. So
all of us have Ramirez at 1.
Yes, we all have Jose Ramirez. I mean,
Seems to be the common thread.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ramirez, 13.4 Fangraphs WAR over the last 3 years. Next closest guy is 11.7.
Guardians, trade him out of the AL Central, please.
Yes, shout out the Guardians. Good call, Ryan. It's our first show with them officially being named the Guardians.
Awesome.
So that's going to wrap up this episode of Golden Sombrero. We thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back next week at Wednesday at 7 o'clock. We thank you all for tuning in on YouTube or on BlazeRadioOnline.com.
All right, good show.
I forgot to live.